This kind of question that we can encounter in the exam is the kind of question that really needs us to think about the scenario and the mathematical techniques that could be applied in this situation we're in. So here we've got a diagram showing the course for a jet ski race. The course is indicated by 3 markers A, B and C with a total length of 1500 metres. Now we know that B is 600 metres from A, C is 650 metres from A, and C is due north of B. We have to determine whether B is due east of A. Well, the first thing we need to figure out is how we can prove that. If we think about just a normal standard compass with north, south, east and west on it, if I have any point here and I've got something that's due east of it, that would mean that the angle between the north line and the east line at that point would be 90 degrees. It would also mean if something was due east of me, the angle between the north and the west line would be 90 degrees. So if B was due east of A, that would mean that A therefore is due west of B, and if that's the case, that would be a right angle. So that would be 90 degrees, which would mean that I have a right angled triangle. So what I've got to do is prove that that's a 90 degree angle. So I've got to prove it's a right angled triangle, and that should instantly lead us on to the technique of the converse of Pythagoras, i.e. using Pythagoras to prove a triangle is right angled. So to do this, we need all 3 sides of the triangle, and we have to then use a squared equals b squared plus c squared to determine our answer. Well, we've got 2 sides, we need to figure out a way to get this third. Well, I'm told the total length of the course is 1500 metres. So to go from A to B to C and back to A is 1500 metres. I know I've got 600 and 650, so if I add them together I get 1250, which means then that this side here must be the missing 250 metres. What I now know then is if I label my sides A, B and C, so let's do A, B and C, for this to be a right angled triangle, A squared must equal B squared plus C squared. It just has to. If it doesn't, it isn't a right angled triangle. So what I have to do is do both sides of that. So if I then split up and I do A squared here and I do my B squared plus C squared here, let's see what we get. So A squared in this case is going to be 650 squared. If I do 650 squared, what I end up getting is 422,500. If I then look at the B squared plus C squared, what I do is I get 600 squared plus 250 squared. So if I do 600 squared plus 250 squared, what I also end up getting is 422,500. Great. What that means in this case is that A squared equals B squared plus C squared. Now, what this means is that yes, it's a right angled triangle and we know that it is due east of it. The key thing though at this one is that we have to be able to communicate the answer correctly. Converse of Pythagoras is one that requires communication being very clear, very succinct and very to the point. So for this we need to include a couple of parts in the statement. So we need to include what does it mean that we've shown. So A squared equals B squared plus C squared. We then have to determine and interpret what that means. So we need a statement along the lines of since A squared equals B squared plus C squared, by the converse of Pythagoras, the angle at B is a right angle, therefore B is due east of A. Something along those lines communicates the answer perfectly clear. It tells them what we've done, what we've proven, and how that relates to the scenario. We have to include something like that. Had this not been the case, we'd have said since A squared does not equal B squared plus C squared, by the converse of Pythagoras, the angle at B is not a right angle, therefore B is not due east of A. We'd have to flip it on its head. We have to make that communication clear right at the end. We have to include those parts of the statement. So what have we just shown in terms of A squared, B squared and C squared? What does it mean using the converse of Pythagoras? Make sure you include all those things when you're communicating that answer. Again, it could cost you silly marks, which is something we don't want. We want everything we can get. Make sure you include it all.